Hi, I'm David Powell. I'm a geography and planning major here at Grand Valley, and I did my mapping project on law enforcement and arrest in Michigan. And Professor Wagendorf, I apologize for the presentation. I couldn't figure out how to put my presentation in power or slideshow with the camera working at the same time, so I have to put it in this format. So the introduction here is the data between law enforcement arrests were both in the year 2009, and the data were both found in the Department of Justice and in the state of Michigan. The data for arrests only accounts for robberies, larceny, sexual assaults, and murderous types of crimes. And law enforcement data do include both paid officers and volunteer officers. So this is a map for arrests in Michigan. And in the brown it shows the lowest amount of arrests and the highest amount of arrests it's shown in green. So we see a really low amount of arrests, of course, in the UP. Some places are bad, like Mackinac, Delta, and Marquette, but other places are mostly Upper Peninsula is fairly safe. And then the lower part of Michigan, we see bad places like Van Buren County, our own county, Ottawa County, and then even in the north central region of Michigan is kind of where I'm going to be focused at. So like Manistee, Wexford, Grand Traverse type of area. So this is the map for arrests in Michigan. And the highest and low LQs for arrests are the highest including Wexford, Van Buren, Grand Traverse, Roscommon, Manistee, Isabella, and Gladwin. So we see Wexford, Grand Traverse, and Manistee that western side of Michigan being a high crime rate area. And then the lowest LQs in Michigan are Midland, Leelanau, Clare, Gobeck, Dickinson, Picaris Isle, and Cass. Overview of arrests. Central and northeast Michigan are the areas with the most arrests based on LQ, primarily in rural communities. And the thumb part of Michigan is considered the safest part, like Huron County. Data within the area, or within the arrests show that stealing, larceny, robberies are the main types of arrests. I actually went back and looked at that data in a Department of Justice, and it showed that those types of arrests were the most common in each county in Michigan, really. And the UP shows half good areas and half bad areas, as I mentioned earlier. Counties, and I noticed too that counties are in pockets. So if you look at the map, even for arrests and law enforcement, that there are just pockets of colors in each state. There's not really sparse types of data. It's really compact together based on each color too. So this is the map for law enforcement. So we see here a really kind of, like I mentioned, the pocket areas in West Michigan, Allegan, Ottawa, Kent, Ionia, places are seeing the same colors. So we see that pocket effect playing a role in West Michigan and even in the UP with, I believe, these blue counties up north. It's kind of hard to tell what those counties are, but that we see a pocket there. And then also even in kind of the east central side of Michigan, so like Saginaw, Ingham, Livingston area, we see a pocket there of low law enforcement. And also note that Midland is a low law enforcement area and also low arrest area, while we see that Wayne is a low arrest area, but a high crime rate area, as we know that as Detroit. So that's the map for law enforcement LQ. And this is the highest and lowest LQs for law enforcement in Michigan. So we have Lake Keweenaw, Montmorency, Benzie, Alcona, Mackinac, and Kalkaska as your highest LQs for law enforcement. And we see Chippewa, Wayne, there's Wayne again, Houghton, Mimony, Macomb, Genesee, and Saginaw the lowest rates for law enforcement. And for the low LQ, we see that Wayne and Saginaw are one of the lowest in the state. And those counties specifically have been known to be some of the most dangerous counties in the United States just over the past couple of years. Just on the overview for law enforcement have very high rates in north central Michigan and other rural communities in Michigan. So that could be the volunteership, possibly through those kind of counties, since it's more on a local home rule basis. And we see low law enforcement in the southern part of the state. So as I mentioned, Wayne, Saginaw, other sparse areas, pocket areas within Michigan, as we saw in the east central part, Saginaw, Midland area. And then UP have higher rates of law enforcement, which could explain possibly an environmental protection type of law enforcement up in Upper Peninsula. So since we see more of that as opposed to in the southern part of the peninsula. So this comparison between the two maps. So as I mentioned earlier, Midland is the lowest in both arrest and law enforcement. They're kind of the staple county to actually look at because they even are a city of metropolitan wise of about 80,000 people. So that's quite a big, area to cover in terms of law enforcement and a really low number in terms of arrests. And the county next to it isn't quite so good, Isabella. So in Isabella, so they see a low amount of law enforcement while they see really high arrest LQ ratios. So we see Isabella really not as efficient county, not as a staple county in Michigan as we do as their neighbors in Midland. So these are the comparison between the two maps of arrest and law enforcement LQ ratios. And a comparison of arrests and law enforcement, Isabella County had both the highest amount of arrests and lowest of law enforcement, as I mentioned earlier. Other inefficient counties, meaning that not enough law enforcement compared to arrests, include Ingham, Marquette, and Delta counties, which those last two are included in the Upper Peninsula. Inefficient counties, meaning they have the right amount of law enforcement per arrest they have. Muskegon, which was kind of surprising to me based on the data, because we see Muskegon as this, tough place in terms of what we see on the news. But in my view, based on the data, they're a pretty efficient county. We see Branch, Livingston, and Houghton, as well as other efficient counties in the state. And we see higher law enforcement needed in north central regions since we see a higher arrest rate in those regions. And that could be a questioning of home rule and funding in those type of areas. And also kind of skewed data because of the population figures might skew the percentages and the ratios just a little bit based on the population. In the southern part of the state as well have higher law enforcement needs, like Wayne County, Saginaw areas, Isabella as well. Some unexpected and expected results. Going in, I did not expect the northern part of the state to be inefficient as it was. And I also did expect that Wayne and other highly populated areas would have a lower LQ ratio for law enforcement, just because there's a higher population percentage rate compared to law enforcement. So if you had 1,000 or 100,000 just in an unknown city in Michigan with 10 officers, that would be a lot lower compared to a town with just 1,000 people and have 10 officers, which is just the same comparison. And I did not expect Isabella to be the worst county, especially having Central Michigan there. I think they have the Indian tribal police, county police, state police, and city police. So that was really kind of unexpected for me to see. But that could be also skewed part of data because it's students going to university. In a conclusion, a comparison between arrests and law enforcement was pretty interesting, just to see the amount of law enforcement compared to the arrests, which the arrests are pretty violent crimes in terms of what the data was based off of. I wish the data did include drug-related crimes too, because I believe that a lot of those crimes could be in direct correlation with drug-related crimes. And then the project was really just eye-opening just to see how many law enforcement officers are in each county in Michigan, and see what in each county, what the features are, the geographic features are, and how that affects that law enforcement number, just based off of home rule, universities, etc. So that is my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I enjoyed it. Thanks. Bye.